Hey, Busy Bees. Today we are back with another chapter in our My Weird School series, Book 7, Mrs. Cooney is Loony by Dan Gutman. But before we get into our chapter of the day, we are going to get into a riddle of the day. And the riddle of the day is, what word contains 26 letters but only has 3 syllables? And I'll tell you again. What word contains 26 letters but only has 3 syllables? And I will give you the answer to the riddle at the end of our chapter. So let's pop open the book and fly through this adventure together. So last week we left off on chapter 6. All right, so let's get into chapter 7, The Truth About Mrs. Cooney. It was recess the next day. Me and Ryan and Michael were playing on the monkey bars with Andrea and her little study buddy, Emily, came over. Like we were friends or something. I know what you boys are up to, Andrea said. None of you has been sick. You just want to go to the nurse's office because you're in love with Mrs. Cooney. That's a lie, I lied. Why does Andrea have to know everything? And why doesn't a garbage truck fall on her head? Mrs. Cooney is busy enough with kids who are really sick, Andrea said. She doesn't have time for fakers. It's none of your business, Andrea, I said. My mother is vice president of the PTA, Andrea said. She could get you kicked out of school for pretending to be sick. Yeah, said Emily, who agrees with everything Andrea says. You're not sick. You're just in love with Mrs. Cooney. Well, I was in love with Mrs. Cooney. Ryan said, but not anymore. What? Said me and Michael. Mrs. Cooney is too weird, said Ryan. I couldn't marry her. What's weird about her? Asked Andrea. We told Andrea about all the strange things Mrs. Cooney did, and I told her that Mrs. Cooney had me hop on one foot and cluck like a chicken while balancing a ruler on my nose. Michael told Andrea that Mrs. Cooney had him stand in a cardboard box and try to wiggle his ears. Ryan told Andrea that Mrs. Cooney had him bounce a balloon on his head while he tried to sing the ABC song backward. And she put a bag of frozen veggies on my head, added Michael. Well, Andrea and Emily were shocked. They couldn't believe it. That's not what nurses are supposed to do, said Emily. They're supposed to take your temperature and give you medicine to help you feel better. Maybe Mrs. Cooney isn't a nurse at all, Michael said. Did you ever think of that? What do you mean? Asked Emily, looking all worried. Maybe she's a fake nurse, said Michael. Maybe she kidnapped the real Mrs. Cooney and locked her up in an airplane hangar somewhere. Stuff like that happens all the time, you know, I added. Andrea sat down on a swing and rested her chin on her hands. I've been giving this a lot of thought, she said. People are not always who they seem to be. I hate to say this, but I've come to a conclusion that Mrs. Cooney is no nurse. So what is she? Emily asked. I have reason to believe, Andrea said, that Mrs. Cooney is a spy. We all gasped. A spy? Asked Michael. You're talking about the woman I love, I said. Andrea got up and paced back and forth from the swings to the seesaw. She looked like one of those detectives in a police movie. Think about it, she said. Mrs. Cooney is always gathering information on everybody. That's what spies do. She talks in a whisper, like she doesn't want anyone to hear her secrets, and she always wears the nurse's uniform. So? Michael asked. School nurses don't wear nurses' uniforms, Andrea said. They wear regular clothes like everybody else. Wait a minute, I said. You're saying that Mrs. Cooney can't be a real nurse because she wears a nurse's uniform? Exactly, Andrea said. It's the perfect disguise. I don't believe it, I said. AJ, you're blinded by love, Andrea said. Mrs. Cooney probably came to our school to spy on us, and she's going to sell the information to some bad guy who's going to try to take over the world. We've got to do something, said Emily, and she went running off the playground. You don't know anything about spies, Ryan told Andrea. I've seen lots of spy movies. Spies always wear trench coats and carry briefcases and drive cool cars. They're always slinking around in the dark and looking in file cabinets. And they've got all kinds of cool spy gadgets. Michael was right. I've seen a lot of spy movies too. You watch her, Andrea said. You'll see I'm right. It's hard to believe that Mrs. Cooney might really be a spy. But after all, Andrea is a genius who knows everything. She's right about everything else. Maybe she was right about this too. And that is the end of our chapter of the day. Oh my goodness. It seems like they've done just like the same thing that they've done in every single book. But now they actually believe that she is someone. So we're going to have to see if she really is a spy. So let's get into the answer of our riddle of the day. So our riddle of the day was, what word contains 26 letters but only has 3 syllables? And the answer is, drum roll please, alphabet. Did you get it? The alphabet? If I were to count the syllables of the alphabet, it would be 3. If you like this video, give it a like. And if you'd like to follow along for more adventures, hit that subscribe button. And I will see you on the next one.